T-Bone said, I'm worried about the O-line still. So.
Yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts, O-line? That's something that people who don't follow the team, and everyone's probably seen the Colin Cowherd stuff. We might get into that a little bit on Wednesday, but like that, what Colin Cowherd is saying on his show, I know he's a hot take baiter.
Yeah.
His whole thing, and a lot of people who don't really, we talk about this all the time. National media, they don't follow the team. They get the little nuggets. The same people who make those mock drafts say, "Oh, Chiefs are going to draft a guard in the first round." No, they're not, and we didn't. But like Colin Cowherd says, "Oh yeah, the Chiefs have a backup left tackle from the 49ers they didn't want to retain, and that's going to be starting for them this year. Their O-line is significantly worse than it was last year with Tooney gone and a backup offensive tackle." Going to the season, whereas last time we saw the Chiefs, this is kind of what they were saying, right? Last time we saw the Chiefs, they were a disaster on the offensive line. And then now this year, the offensive line has even regressed even further than it did the last time we saw them in Philadelphia. Now you see comments like this. T-Bone says, I'm worried about the offensive line still. Now, I'll take it to us now. So we have Jalen Moore, left tackle, who was the backup for Trent Williams, who did start 5 games last year and in a small sample size, looked good. And then our new left guard, probably going to be Kingsley Sumatia. Now, what do you make of the offensive line? Are you as concerned as some of these national pundits are?
No, not at all. I think what we did is we actually went out and did our due diligence this offseason to find and comb through what was out there that was going to be the best fit for the Chiefs. I think we were always looking to try to get a guy in the first round to play tackle. It was going to really be on who was going to fall to us. And I think this was probably the best scenario possible for us, Marcus, to be honest with you. So we got a guy in Jalen Moore who, like you said, started 5 games, did a tremendous job of those 5 games that he started for Trent Williams. And then we got Josh Simmons here, who is, by all accounts and measures, man, probably would have been a top 10 pick if he hadn't hurt his knee. The thing is, because of the injury and his progression with it, man, he's going to be ready probably for the season. And so we have 2 capable tackles. So Jalen Moore, who has experience in the NFL, who's done very well, if you say small sample size, but then also Josh Simmons, who is, for what I said, is probably the one tackle that was probably ready, game ready, NFL ready. He was better than everybody else that I saw out there. I know everybody talked about Will Campbell down at LSU, and it still remains to be seen. But my money was on Josh Simmons, just his athletic ability, his physicality. And Will Campbell, he's a good tackle. But those 2 guys are probably 1 and 2 for me. Everybody else, I think, was kind of distant second and third, really. But as far as everything else goes, we lost Joe Tooney, which is probably one of the best guards in the league, no question about it. But we have a very hungry and competitive King Suma that's probably going to be playing left guard. And so we know that now, because he's not out on the island and he's got probably the best center in the league in Creed Humphrey on the inside of him. And then, of course, on the outside, he's got some experience and guys that are just ballers, the go-getters, that's going to be able to help him out. I think he'll be able to thrive at that position. Now we go to the other side of the line, right? Who are we going to worry about? Trey Smith, we went ahead and got here for another $25 million. Probably trying to look to get him in a long-term contract. Why? Because he's probably one of the most talented young guards in the league. And everybody knew that. So he was one of those guys that you had to sign, especially if you let go of Joe Tooney. That was just the reality. And then you talk about, Jawan Taylor. Jawan Taylor, obviously, he's got to get better at some of the false starts and all those different things. I think he's going to do a much better job. And I think he understands exactly what this means for him this year. So I'm not really concerned about our O-line. I think we fixed that problem or the issue that we had. And we got some good guys that can come into play, like Wanye Morris, right? We know there's guys that we have here that's waiting in the win. Norzad, Hansen, those guys like that, right? So go ahead, my brother.
I think my thing comes down to, and you beautifully explained kind of the whole side of the line. And I think you look at it, right, and it's easy for these national pundits to say, like, oh, it's a worse O-line than it was last year. It's okay. Well, that bad O-line, right, we went against the Eagles' powerhouse defensive line, right? But that bad O-line that got worse took them all the way to the Super Bowl, right? What was that, week
Yeah.
15 when the Cleveland game, when Tooney ended up going over to the left tackle, and then from week 14 or 15 on, took him to the Super Bowl. And not to say, it was a failure for us. We wanted to win. We wanted a three-peat. It was still a failure. However, that battle line still took the one the AFC and got us to the Super Bowl. But then you look at who's projected to start the left side versus what we had in that Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Jalen Moore, Joe Tooney. Joe Tooney's not a left tackle. Jalen Moore is a left tackle. So right then and there, that's already an upgrade over that left tackle spot. Yes. Not to the left guard. Joe Tooney has left tackle, and he's not a left tackle. So right away, that's an upgrade over that left tackle from that Super Bowl game. But then you go Kingsley and Caliendo. Now, the argument there is, for a lot of people, is that, okay, if Kingsley was so good last year, why was Caliendo starting over him as the left guard spot instead? And now this year we're going to sign him to be that left guard. That's where the one thing is kind of for me, that's where I say, oh, there is logic to that argument there. However, Kingsley was just learning that spot this year. So, he's still kind of a project, I would say, but, this guy had all the makings to be a top 2-round lineman. I know we drafted him to be a tackle, and that experiment didn't work out. We drafted Simmons. So now it kind of seems foregone for right now that Kingsley will be a guard until maybe next year we can see what's going to happen with the right tackle spot. My guess is they move more over right tackle and leave Simmons at left tackle. But for now, let's just talk about the guard spot. Where do you stand on the Kingsley? If he was good, he should have been starting over Caliendo at the left guard spot, because that was kind of a leaky spot. That left guard was seen kind of leaky for the last few games of the year. What do you make of that whole Kingsley Caliendo argument?
I think you were spot on, to be honest with you. You can't look at it in any other type of way. Going from tackle to guard is a new position for Sumaite. But the reality is, once he has the reps, he gets more comfortable in that position. It's an easier transition from tackle to guard as opposed guard to tackle, which Joe Tooney masterfully did. And he showed out, because that's who Joe Tooney is, right? He's just a great lineman in every regard. And so, but we've seen, probably because of the things, shorter arms and those things like that, Marcus, came to bite him in the tail. But Sumaite, where he does have the athletic ability, we know he is strong enough. He can go and play guard. We know that. So him and Caliendo's been playing. That's his position. That's what he does. He does well. But Sumaite, who is, I say, a capable tackle, now moving down the guard, I think he'll just it'll be a good transition for him to make this move. I think they believe that too. So it'll be easier for him. Like I said before, he's not in the island. Now he has shorter spaces. Now he can be as physical as he wants to be, especially at position. You can ask anybody, especially guys that play O-line, that going from tackle to guard is an easier transition. Most people know that. Those pundits out there, they may not know that because they never probably played that position. So we know that King Suma was a very talented guy. He is a very talented guy. But we give him going into training camp. Now, look, it's going to be a battle. No question about it. If he still hadn't picked it up, then Caliendo's got to play. But I think King Suma, kind of given the time, given the reps, obviously during the offseason and all those different things, he has time just to learn it. He's going to be fine. I don't see anybody else beating him out to that position. Caliendo is still a good left guard, but I think King Suma is probably going to get the nod at that position. But you said it best, though. It's all because he had to make that transition. He had to learn that position.
And I think last year too, this also kind of because Caliendo kind of is who he is, right? Where I think Kingsley, we don't know what his potential can be at that guard spot. So I think they will see there's a big potential with him. The kind of, he's got a high ceiling for this whole thing, and maybe a high floor too at the left guard spot. But I do think they did see one thing, right, with because of Caliendo having to play guard and Tooney having to play left tackle. They saw that, we can get by with, and I'll say this, mediocre guard play. And sometimes it was really bad. I remember there were some games you and I were texting that guard spot's kind of rough, but we were still able to make it through that. And I think that one thing did show them is okay, we don't need to be paying Tooney and Trey Smith a lot of money, right? Because we just saw we got to Super Bowl with a mediocre guard at that left spot in Caliendo. So that did show them that, right? But it also showed them look, we can only go as far as this as a guard playing left tackle. We're not gonna win with that. But we bring in Jalen Moore, who at least for this year can be a left tackle while Simmons gets healthy, and then next year we could figure out the next year problem, moving more to the right side. But I think what they saw last year is like, hey, we can move a mediocre guy and be okay, patchwork okay at that left guard spot. Now, in Caliendo, but now you have potential of a second round lineman in Kingsley who could potentially be that and more at that left guard spot. Because I think at worst case, I don't think he's going to be worse than Caliendo.
No, and also too, let's be real about this. He's getting worked by some of the best defensive tackles in the league. I'm sure he's seeing Chris Jones, Mike Dana. He's seeing, Menahu. He's going to be seeing Mike Pennell. He's seeing guys like that in practice. So it's not like he's going against chopped liver. He's going against one of the top defensive lines in the league. They do a great job in like pushing and being very forceful in two-gap play and whatnot. So he's getting work to get ready to play this position. I just don't, like you said, he's a second-round pick for a reason. And so for a guy that, like I said, played out in space, it's going to be a lot easier for him. He's more athletic than, guards are. Strength is going to be the issue. He's strong enough. We know he's strong enough to play the position. And so I don't have any questions. I don't have any issues as far as him going down. I really don't, Marcus. I don't have any concerns whatsoever. I'll say this. As much as we wanted to keep, with the whole Joe Thuney, and I guess they made a decision, but Andy Heck, me and him were kind of on the same page. I thought DJ Humphries probably should have came in and played at left tackle, and just see what he was going to be able to give you. Now, after he healed up from that injury, was his knee okay to go out there and go play? Because the thing is, you could have put him out there and see how it would have looked, because we already knew what the contingency plan was. So, hey, he didn't get it right. Move Joe Thuney out there, right? The tackle. We knew what it was going to be. But I thought, he should have went ahead, at least had a chance and opportunity to come play. And that's here nor there right now. But I think, Andy Heck had the same thought in his mind, right? It's like, okay, this experiment, hey, it's worked so far, but he was still kind of, you know what I mean? He wasn't quite sold on it. And I think Andy Reid just was like, hey, man, like, look, if it ain't broke, let's, don't fix it. Let's stay with Joe out there. So to our detriment, actually,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not to say like, I mean, we got beat down pretty good. It's not to say that we would have won the Super Bowl off that, but I mean, it could have been a closer game with that, but we'll never know. But again, I think they did get to see that even at the worst case, a mediocre left guard was solid enough to get us to that spot. And now Kingsley could be even better than that. And obviously they saw enough from Kingsley to be like, you know what? It's not going to be the drop off. It's not going to be that much, especially with the amount of money that Thuney was getting paid. So, and they got a draft pick out of it. So,
where was your money going to help you out? Where was it going to go longer at? Right?
Yeah.
We know we needed a left tackle. So you go address an off season. You give a good, bag to Jalen Moore, and then you go get a guy for the future. That's the way you do it. I think Casey Colossus says it right. He said, "Let's not get by no more. Let's get a solid freaking line and watch Mahomes magic for years." Absolutely. And I think Casey Colossus, I think they did a good job in doing that. I think they showed up what they needed to show up on that line. You got Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, you got King Suma, and then you're talking about Jalen Moore and also Josh Simmons. That's a good bet for me. And Wanye Morris. We got some dogs up front now. Young guys, young dogs who's going to be here for a long time. That's a good thing.
Yeah, and we're set up with this draft. We're set up for next year too, because Moore was a 2-year deal. Even if Moore is badass at left tackle, they say, "Hey, okay, but we found our left tackle in the future." And then Simmons, who's played right tackle, just goes to right tackle spot. So it's kind of seamless, right? And if Jalen Moore looks meh, then they say, "Hey, okay, Jalen Moore, right tackle. Josh Simmons goes to left tackle and becomes our left tackle for the next 10 years." So like they have a whole. It looks like it seems like they have a blueprint in place here. Kingsley, it didn't work out left tackle, but we have him as guard now, and he's going to be the guard now. And like, so it's a mix of, just next year's going to be a mix of a lot of young guys, the O-line. And yeah, so I think they have it built up for sure. So I don't think it's a patchwork O-line going into the future.
Not at all. Stanley Mooney said, "I know we addressed the left side of the O-line. Taylor's technique needs work to leave at the start of the season. was throwing flags left and right on lining up, and we pushed the limits. He'll be better at this year. He'll be better at this year. What was the other one he had up there? Stanley had.
His next one was, I noticed the first half of last season we ran a lot of double tight end sets. I'm not sure if it was the issue at left guard and or Rice and Hollywood being out.
I think, we're probably one of the teams that do a lot of more, double tight ends anyway, sets. Because we have two guys that can actually go and is a matchup nightmare. Noah Gray does a great job of getting open. He does a great job of blocking. They put him in different positions in the backfield, moving him, to get up the field and slot. Him and Travis Kelce do a great job when they both in there. So I think for us, our two tight end sets, man, it's a benefit. It's an advantage as opposed to everybody else. Where some guys like doing it short yardage or in the end zone just to get in, we could do it out in the field. First down, go two tight end sets. Why? Two capable guys. Not to mention, I know we ain't going to talk about tight ends because I want to give a little more time to this, but obviously we got, Jared Rowley, Jake Bringenstool, Robert Tonyan. We got guys, the best tight end rooms in the business. So I think, Stanley, what you'll see is, a lot of, 12 and 13 personnel, which we should. We should do that. So.
Yeah. We do have a question.
I like Hendershot too. We'll see how this is going to work.
It's weird. Hendershot's not on the Chiefs roster online.
He's not?
I went to the Chiefs website. He's not on there. So unless I missed something, did he get cut? I mean, because there's only six tight ends on the Chiefs roster on their website. Oh. Only six. Trey Watson, the new guy, Brandon Stool, the new guy, and Robert Tonyan, and then Kelce, Wiley, and Gray. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And their website's pretty up to date. So I'm curious if he got cut and I just must have missed it. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out the best clips from Chief Concerns. And if you prefer to listen to the show, subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.